Hey everybody, welcome to another Evergrow Living Live. We are in our studio, it is our studio.
Yes, our studio.
It is our studio, which is our yoga studio. So we're here live with you to talk about some things that are kind of near and dear to my heart.
Mm-hmm.
So this week we're going to be talking about being Mary in a Martha world. So I don't know. I always ask you first.
Yes.
It just seems to be our thing.
What is it so near and dear to your heart?
I think for me it's because I have found that I am a Mary at times. Or not a Mary, but a Martha.
Okay.
Yeah. So I tend to always be constantly feeling like I need to be busy and, and if I sit down for any length of time, then I'm being lazy. And that doesn't seem to be a good thing. And so, so that's why it's dear to me. It's because it's something that I'm trying to work on myself, is to be more like Mary. Yeah.
I think for me, like, I feel like many times I am Martha, but in a different way.
Okay.
Not because like sitting down for me is laziness. It's like, for me, there's so much to do, right? It's like there's so much that can be done. Like we can just do this and do that and do this. But then the last part of this story, when Martha gets mad at Jesus and was like, why don't you tell her to help me? I very much relate to that. I think for me, it's like, how many of my prayers and requests and how many of my like desires for God is just for him to ask to tell other people to help me. As opposed to what he's really telling me is, well, you just need to sit down. Right. Like, and also I can't control that. Right. Like, that's not something that's meant to be, because that takes away that person's choice in a way. So for me, it's, I don't need to tell this person to do anything. I choose to keep myself busy. So if I don't like the consequences of that, I must choose to change it.
And if you are not familiar with the story that we're talking about the story of Mary and Martha, and they there's a Bible verse, Luke 10:38-42, and Jesus basically goes over to Mary and Martha's house, and Martha's working really hard to make sure, she's being the hostess with the mostess, right? So she's trying to take care of everything, feeding everybody, and all those things. And meanwhile, Martha is just sitting, chilling out, listening to Jesus.
Chilling.
She's listening to Jesus, and so Mary, is like probably like many of us, stressed out.
Oh, Martha,
I mean, Martha, I keep saying the wrong word. Martha's so stressed out, like, what is going on here? And so she goes to Jesus and she yells at him, basically. It's like, what are you doing? Like, why are you, why are you tell her to help me? And he basically tells her, he's like, no, Martha, Mary chose the best way to go. So there, it's that lesson for us, is that sometimes the best thing to do is just sit. And in this case, listening to Jesus. But I think we could even expand it to more, is that sometimes we don't listen to our own bodies. We don't, right? And we'll just push ourselves until we are exhausted. And I think that's that listening to our bodies and listening to kind of what we're really needing to do in the moment. Do we have to be so busy?
Well, I think it's like, so whenever I read scripture, I also think of like context. So not only Jesus came, but Jesus came with like his crew. So, right, like, so Martha had to get everything ready for like 12 plus people.
A lot of people.
Right?
It's
like,
a house full.
Yes. And like, not just bread. Like, she had to do like the whole appetizers, and that takes time. So,
and they had to make everything from scratch.
Yes,
there was no corner market.
Like, they can't even air fry anything. It's like I can't just pop this pita in the air fryer and it'll be ready in like 10 to 12 minutes. So whenever I think about that, it's just kind of like, oh wow, like his intent wasn't to eat.
No,
his intent was just to see them. Right. Like,
spend time with them.
But again, in that context, like especially as women were taught that you serve. So she also was just responding to what she knew, right? So for me, it's like Mary actually was the rebel.
She was.
Like Mary was the one that was like, I'm not going to host. I'm going to sit.
Yeah.
And
I love that. Mary was the rebel. I'm gonna write that down, actually.
Right. But like whenever I used to rescue, I still do it. I'm like, I would not do that. I would do this. It's like, so when I would read this, I'm like, I would be Mary. I would be the rebel and sit down.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, I absolutely would not.
I wish I would be.
Right. Like I am an older of 4. Like I most likely would be like, so how many people are coming?
Yeah.
Does everyone have a drink? Like this, I would naturally be Martha.
Yeah.
Because that is what I have been conditioned and taught and to like make sure everyone's okay before you sit down.
Yeah.
So when I think about it from that context, it's like, okay, like Jesus was inviting them, Martha, to rebel against culture and to say, just sit down.
Yeah.
And especially in our day and age, like how many times do we feel that, like, I hear it all the time with my clients. It's like going to therapy means that like I failed or that I'm lazy.
Yeah.
Or the fact that I can't keep up at work means that I'm behind. Like, but it's how much of it is that you're exhausted.
Yeah.
And you feel like you have to meet the standard that you didn't even set for you.
No.
Right?
Like, we haven't. It's funny because I've recently been really thinking about this a lot for myself because I really am coming from a place of where I was pretty much, I had allowed myself to go into a burnout state again. And some of it was not, it was probably, as some folks know, I mean, I was caring for my mom who had dementia, and then, so some of the stuff wasn't really a choice.
Yeah.
Which happens. But as I'm coming out of this season, I've been really looking at like, well, I don't want to repeat.
Yeah.
I don't want to go back into that. So what can I do? What can I change in my life so that I don't get to that season again?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, there's such, I love this when you said Mary was a rebel, because it is countercultural right now for us to slow down and to just listen to our bodies. And as women, we are often conditioned to be, 2's on the Enneagram. So those of you, we often mention that the Enneagram is that we are conditioned to be helpers, and to put our needs aside often. And so it's looking at, it's just looking at, what do I need? And it's okay to say, well, maybe I need rest, or maybe I need water, or maybe I need food, or maybe I need this, and taking that, slowing things down. And being okay with it.
Yeah, and I like the point because it does start from like the bottom up, right? It usually starts from like our physiological, like, am I eating? Am I sleeping? Am I drinking water?
Yeah.
Am I getting enough sun?
Yeah.
I always tell folks like, we are just grown succulents, right? like, are you getting your water, food, sun, right? Like, and then it kind of affects all of that. Like, if I'm not doing the base of the pyramid, right? Like, then how can I do all that, right? The other day I was doing a session and we were talking about the different tenets of this person's life and working on it. And we went to like spiritual life, and one of the things like, like going to church, tithing, doing all of these things.
Yeah, like it's a checklist.
Yeah. And then I was like, well, like, do you just spend time in the morning?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, it dawned on her because she saw it also on the board and was like, the one thing I'm not doing when it comes to my spiritual life is just reading the word and praying.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's where we get filled. That's literally where we get, like, when I go to prayer, is like, I can request, but really the whole point of it is to get filled is conversation.
Yeah.
And when it becomes, okay, I'm doing volunteer, or I'm part of that group, or I'm part of that ministry, and I'm part of that thing, we can even become Marthas within church.
Definitely.
Martha's within work, Martha's within family.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and there's a time and a place for Martha, because Martha fed.
Yeah,
right?
she got things done.
Yeah.
Well, and you were saying this, it reminded me of a conversation I had recently too, where I was asking, it was a brand new person I was meeting with, and I just asked, what is your spiritual background? Wasn't, just out of curiosity, what is your spiritual thing? And immediately it was, well, I am a Christian, but I'm not a very good Christian. I was like, okay, well, tell me a little bit about that. Like, what does that mean to you? And it came down to what you're just saying. It was like, well, I don't read my Bible like I should. I don't pray like I should. I don't, and I'm like, she goes, but I do there was something she was doing. And I was like, okay, but tell me what do you mean about like, good. And this whole thing. So we started to kind of unpack that. And it was like, again, this checklist of a good Christian means that you do this, 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 and this. And I'm like, but, what about the, relationship? Like, so if you had a friend, how would you treat the friend?
Yeah.
And so it started to kind of help her to see that, like, wait a minute, this isn't about me doing. And that it was okay to have a relationship there, that I was able to have a conversation. And so then when we looked at it, she was actually started saying, well, I do, I listen to praise and worship music, and I do sing. And I'm like, so you do have, some connection. Well, I guess I'm not such a bad Christian, and I'm like, okay, so let's reevaluate this. Is that what's really important? And I think if we looked at it, Martha would have been probably, right, the checklist. Well, I got to do this, this, and this. Whereas Mary's saying, let's just listen. I just want to hear what you have to say. I just want to sit here and listen, take it in.
Because again, like context, like Jesus didn't live there. So it's like, you have a friend that you haven't seen. And back then there's no like tweet. There's no like, I'm coming in 20. Right. Yeah. So it's
or
like
sharing your ETA
right?
on your text.
Like,
your
so
iPhone.
part of it is also like, this is a friend you haven't seen. This is a man that wants to be friends with you.
Yeah.
That you haven't seen. And you don't know when you're going to see him again.
Yeah.
Right. So I think thinking in that way is also, and you just made me think of back then, like, right, the Jews, like you read this and you know this and you know all of that.
Yeah.
But then the early Christians, there was no book.
Yeah.
There was no like sit for 20 minutes and pray. It was just, they didn't know how to have a relationship with God. That wasn't taught. So they just began by doing different, right? So it's just kind of like, well, if there's any form of connection, if he knows you, then you have relationship.
Exactly.
There's a lot of us that he may not know, but we're doing all the checklist.
Exactly. And then that makes me think of the where it says, I never knew that, never knew you. But yeah, it's just this time of just being able to think about what really matters in life. Being able to slow down, to be able to take care of ourselves, to be able to have that connection with God. And just, again, slowing down. Yeah. And how often do we fill ourselves or fill our lives with just extraneous stuff that we think is going to make us happy?
Yeah.
I know some folks who, ended up, they got a really expensive, beautiful home, but now there's this place where they're unhappy in their relationship, and they also are strapped to jobs that aren't really giving them peace, so that they can pay for this house. Yeah. So then it's like, is this really what we want to do? Is have all these things and keeping us busy and cluttering our lives. Yeah. And I don't know, that's just a hard one, I think, for a lot of us.
Yeah. And I think it makes me think of there's this documentary on Netflix about minimalism. And I think they said like the average house has like 300,000 things in it that like we hardly ever use, right? Yeah. But it made me think of that. One of the things that they challenge is, do you really need all this stuff? Right. Yeah. And I remember when I first watched it like long ago when it came out, I was like, yeah, like I need all this stuff. But I don't know about you, but like for me, like everything that I like or everything that I see is a version of what I already have.
Pretty much.
Right. Like
how many like if I like a shirt, I'll end up buying like 3 of them in different colors.
Yes. Yeah. Like I have 5,000 versions of a black shirt. Yeah. But they all feel different. Right. Yes. But they challenge this notion of like, do you need all of these versions of a black shirt? Yeah. Do you need all these different kinds of shoes? Like how many of them do you actually wear? But it made me think of that, like, what is all of this being done for? Yeah. So it makes me think of like, the boot camp that we're going to do in a couple of weeks, like each parts of the life. Like if we even look at financial, like you're mentioning, like if I'm a Martha in a Mary world, I have to always acquire more stuff or be of a certain status. Yes. But it doesn't always mean that there's a wealth mindset in there. Yeah. Or even emotionally or even physically, like all the tenets that we talk about at the boot camp is recognizing, do I really need this? Yeah. Or is there something in me that is having me believe that I need this?
Yes. It comes down to our beliefs about ourselves, about the world, about how other people see us. Yeah. How we feel loved, the belonging. Right. Yeah. So I need to have this. I need to have this. And I know I hate, so one of the things I hate to admit about myself is that sometimes things do appeal to me, like pretty shiny, pretty objects.
I love earrings. I will always buy an earring. I will always stop at a market.
Earrings, but I mean, even name brand things, like I really do like, but it's like, then it goes, do I really need that stuff? Yeah. I had to really challenge myself on even Kate Spade bags. It was like, do you really need this? Like, but I would justify it because I was like, well, I only buy it during their clearance sale, and you get it like 75% off.
Yes.
But then I'm still like, really? You have 3 now. Like, and, do I just keep buying them? Just be buying them? Like, I don't even use them.
I did that with purses long ago. I was like, Marlise, you carry one bag always.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I really do.
Yeah.
That's really it.
I don't need it anymore. I do not need anymore. I could go on with all the stupid things I've done, but yeah. And I know for me though, a lot of it, I was talking to my son about this, is that for me, like shoes, we have somebody interrupting right now. After that. Hello. Let's go back to our program. That was crazy. So we were talking and I said, I had this thing about shoes. Mm-hmm. And what it came down to, if I really am honest, is like when I was younger, we didn't have a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And my mom was a beautiful seamstress and she could actually make beautiful, beautiful clothes. But we always couldn't afford things. So back in the 80s, so those of you that are a little bit older can remember this, where parachute pants were really popular.
It's like the balloon ones, kind of.
They were like made out of parachute material.
Oh, what?
Yeah, and they were like really like kind of during like the flash dance phase. You wore them with leg warmers. Yeah, it was like there was. Yeah. So anyway, my mom made me a pair, and you would have known because she was, like I said, she was a professional seamstress. And I had my leg warmers, and I was like all in my little shirt that's like half over the shoulder. I felt like I was so cool, but I didn't have the right shoes. All I had was loafers. Like that was all I had, and I'm like, you can't wear exercise gear with loafers. But that's all I had. And I think somewhere in my mind, this was junior high where, everything's so important. It was, yes. I can't ever let this, I have to always have the right shoe with the right outfit because I was embarrassed about what it said about me because I didn't want people to think I was poor.
Yeah.
So my story was, I can't look poor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so then those messages become really what kind of keeps us in the Mary story or the Martha story, right? Where we're not allowing ourselves to just be, because again, Mary was a rebel and not afraid for people to look at her and go, what are you doing just sitting there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she has worth.
She has worth.
Right. Like that's the other thing. Like for those that like maybe your narrative is, because mine is sometimes like I am worthy if I do.
Yeah.
Right. And then that goes to like, if I do and if I please. Right.
Yeah.
So, but for Mary, it was just, no, I'm sitting here. Like, I'm set, man. Like, I don't care how long it takes me to be here. Like,
and she knew her identity in Christ.
Yeah.
And I think that comes down to like what we're talking about, that worth and value is that she knew her value in Christ. Mm-hmm. I have value no matter what. I often use this analogy. I was going to say if we have our water bottle that Tank was using, but I often give this analogy about a water bottle. And if you look at the water bottle, most states, if you look at it empty, it's worth like 5 cents if you take it to get it cashed in, right? But we often just throw it away. I gave a water bottle to my dog to play with. So it's just a toy, But we often just think of it as like, okay, this is just trash. But that bottle actually has value.
That's true. I never thought of it like that.
So what we use it for, so I was able to recycle it for the dog toy.
Yes.
We can turn it in. I can reuse it.
Oh, absolutely.
I can put more water in it, or I can put something else in it. I can recycle it and it can turn into a pair of shoes, a pen, something else, right? It has value no matter what. And we're like those water bottles.
Yeah.
Right? We have value no matter what. It's just, can we accept that as our identity? Is that what we decide to do with our this temple?
Yeah.
Is just our purpose.
Yeah.
It's not our value.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully that hits home for someone. So that realizing that you are enough and that you have value, even just you, and it's okay to just be able to rest. It's okay to be able to just have some time to just be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boredom is a lost art, is one of my coworkers tells me. He's like, he was telling me, he's like, Marlise, your generation has lost the art of boredom. It's okay just to sit down and have nothing to do.
Yeah.
No plan to have, nothing to, like, I think I was raised very much in like a hustle culture. Like you hustle, you go, go, go. And he's like, no, it's okay just to do nothing.
Do nothing.
And nothing is wrong about it. Like,
It's
No,
okay.
that's true.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of recap what we talked about today. I know my takeaway was that I have value, that just being, that no matter what, and that it's okay to be a rebel.
Yeah, I like what you said about the water bottle.
Yeah.
Especially like there are different purposes and it doesn't lose its meaning or its value. So that is definitely one thing I'll take away from it.
Yeah. So if you have a takeaway, I would love to hear it. So share with us in the comments what your takeaways were from today's discussion. Like I said, would love to talk to you. And where can people hear us?
So you can hear us on Apple, right? We're gonna be on Apple, Spotify, everywhere that there is a podcast. Yeah. We also just started a TikTok. It is under construction, but we just started a TikTok, so you can follow us there as well. But yeah, like on Facebook, you're there. YouTube, Instagram, YouTube, right? So just everywhere that there is content, we'll be there.
We'll be there. So if you ever need us, we're here for you. Just reach out to us. And we just want to thank you, whoever you are, our listeners, because without you, we'd be just talking to ourselves. Yeah. And like we always say, is that's okay. We do like to.
All the time. Yes.
So the thing, don't forget, if you are watching us on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. If you are listening to us on our podcast, go ahead and hit and subscribe as well. Mm-hmm. And again, leave us a review or a comment because we really want to know what you think. And yeah. And then the last thing is that we are you hinted at it. We do have a Women's Wellness Bootcamp that's coming up. If you've been on our Facebook page, you should be seeing some content on that pretty soon. And there'll be some registration for it. And just to let you know that it is free. It's for 5 weeks. So every Monday at 6 o'clock, we'll be having our boot camp. And it's not an exercise program. So I know a lot of people thought that, like, is this an exercise program?
No.
It is not. No. But we will kick your butt. No. So we are going to be covering topics like your emotional health, your physical health. And then we're going to be taking it from kind of looking at hormones and nutrition. That was point of view. We're also going to be talking about money, friendships, and am I missing something?
Spiritual.
And spiritual. Yep. So all 5 of those areas that we're going to be talking about. So please register, sign up for it. We'd love to have you in our boot camp. And I think that's it. Is there anything else that we need to talk about?
No, it was a pleasure. And we'll talk to you guys later.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Bye.